fill this part of my soul and also make some extra money on the side. But I'm now seeing after this kind of 3-year mark that it's got momentum now because I've grounded in myself. I've grounded in the principles and kind of the foundation of what I want this community to be. I really did a lot of, work and spiritual kind of intention around what this community is and what it isn't, and who are my, kind of right people. And now as I put out retreats, like they're literally just filling up within a month.
Do you ever come across a coaching program and wonder how they sold it, why they built it, and what life looks for them day to day? From that very first client to the 10th, 100th, and 1000th client, I want to know all the details. I'm Michelle Rockwood, and I teach life coaches how to sell their coaching for thousands, without scripts and with your entire heart and soul. Join me as we deep dive behind the scenes into some of the world's most successful coaches, from 25,000 to 25 million and everywhere in between.
Tiffany, can we just dive right in and get to the good stuff? And then I do want to hear like all about you even more. But every time I go on a retreat, which I'm kind of like a retreat junkie, I wonder, is this profitable? I think every person has thought about, should I hope, going on trips around the world, bringing friends and having these connections sounds amazing, but is this profitable?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, for me, it was, I don't like to say it's never about the money, because it is. We do things and we need to value ourselves. We need to value our time and our work and what we put into it. But for me, the intention underneath the profit was really the main impetus. And that was when I got to Colorado. It was around building community, because I was a new mom. I had a ton of friends from the yoga community before and a ton of single friends back home in San Diego. And I knew we wanted to be in Colorado, but still didn't have really a community. And I was like, man, I feel super alone. And for me, the Facebook groups are amazing. And I also just crave in-person connection. And I was like, if I crave this, I'm sure other moms crave this. And as much as we can connect online, there's just nothing like getting together and really doing the work together and playing together too. So the profit, I think, really comes from the devotion. For me, because I had a full-time job, I wasn't really, trying to push and do a ton of retreats all up front. Like it was like, I need to fill this part of my soul and also make some extra money on the side. But I'm now seeing after this kind of 3-year mark that it's got momentum now, because I've grounded in myself. I've grounded in the principles and kind of the foundation of what I want this community to be. I really did a lot of, work and spiritual kind of intention around what this community is and what it isn't, and who are my, kind of right people. And now as I put out retreats, like they're literally just filling up within a month. And I don't really have to do anything, but it's also a patience game, I think, because any flower needs time to grow and to bloom, and any community takes roots. Like you got to grow roots. And if you, if you're coming outside of your ideals and your morals and your values to push the money through, or to, that money's your only focus, then I feel as soon as I go down that track, it's a different frequency, and I'm not getting the retreat registrations. I'm, like I feel inauthentic and untrue to myself. So long story short, I do think it is like, I could see myself eventually, doing more retreats and making more money at it. But I also think that having stability is awesome in the meantime, because it takes time to grow it. And for me, that was important.
Tiffany, one, I love this so much, because you're just like, the intention was pure behind it. And if you stepped into this going, I want to make $1 million off of my retreats, the intention behind it would have fallen short and it wouldn't come out in your marketing, in all the Facebook lives, you do all the things, your website. Tiffany has this incredible manifesto and I will put a link to it. It is so, it brought me to tears. So the intention behind, and it's called Mothers Moving Mountains. And even her logo is badass. Like, it's just so freaking cool. Like, you want to be a part of it. You want to wear the sweatshirts, all the things. Let's go back to that first retreat you filled in Colorado, because at first, and I was talking to a client about this yesterday, I said, it's okay. Because I teach unscripted sales, and when I teach that, it's really not about chasing. Mm-hmm. But when you're first filling that retreat, I was like, it's okay if there's a little bit of hustle. And tell me where I'm wrong, but I think when you first filled that retreat, there was a little bit of hustle in the beginning. Now there's ease, but take us back to filling that first retreat.
Yeah, I love actually going back to that, that point, because I was just excited. That came from a pure internal, call it selfish, if you will, desire to surround myself with a bunch of amazing women and do the things that I love with other women. But I even started out with focus groups. Like, I realized that certainly there are a ton of moms groups on Facebook. So that was an easy avenue, but me just saying, hey, here's a retreat, come, was like, people didn't know me, and I was coming in from out of state, and all of a sudden I'm doing these mom retreats, and I hadn't grown the roots yet. So I actually just engaged people in the conversation, engaged moms, and said, hey, what do you think about this? Is this something that you'd want? What do you think? And I'd do polls and I'd pose different questions, and then you'd have like 50 to 100 moms respond, like, yes, let's do this. And then they'd offer like what they wanted to do in the comments. And so my hustle, and it was actually a pretty big hustle up front, is I'd type in all of their names into a spreadsheet, and don't worry, I'm not sharing this out with anybody, but I type all their names because I knew that they either liked the post or they responded, and then I'd tag them on other things, knowing that they wanted to know more once I got to that point. I still hadn't built my website yet. I was just really like creating engagement and wanting to be in the conversation authentically. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to try this to see if I can get more people. It was like, I want to know what they want so that I can provide it, but then also live in alignment with what I want too. So yeah, there was definitely like, when someone said that they were interested, I'd get them on the list, ask them if they wanted to be on the list. If they wanted to keep in touch, I'd personally message them through Facebook. Like, Facebook was a pretty great avenue for me at the time. That was, 3 years ago. So a little bit's changed since then, but yeah, so it does take a lot. And I only got 8 people the first retreat, and I broke even. So, you learn so much. I did a whole retreat center, and there was a lot of overhead, and what I was charging probably wasn't exactly what I should, as far as making profit, but I was playing with the idea, and I was just really interested in having the experience first so that I could grow from there.
Breaking even your first time, I think, in any business venture is a win, right? That's pretty, as long as you didn't have a huge loss.
Yeah.
And I want to share too, so here you did so much market research. You also put so much love and energy into that first retreat. It was at an incredible spot. And you said, I only had 8 people. And one that was like a perfect number. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too little. It was just right.
That's true.
But the other thing is you put on an incredible retreat. Like, it was life changing. You poured your whole soul into it, and we could feel it. And so you created 8 advocates, right? Like 8 little mini Facebook groups walking around. I can't tell you how many people I've told about Mothers Moving Mountains, that I've forwarded your retreat to, that I've said, get your butt on here, come to it. And now we're inviting each other. So I didn't know Tiffany at all before.
Right.
And I was pretty nervous to go by myself. And she was so welcoming. You reached out to me personally. That was like the hustle. I suppose I probably was on that list.
Yeah.
And she said, come on, get your butt over here. We want you here. And I was like, okay, like totally scared shitless. And it was a life-changing experience. And I think that so often as coaches, we focus so much on getting people into our programs that you forget you actually have to be fucking amazing at what you do, right? For people to come back. Like, be amazing and show up with your whole heart and your whole soul and lay it out there for people. And that's what attracts them to the next thing.
Yep, that's so true. And I really appreciate that. Thank you. Because it's fun to look over the years and watch how it grew, and to see that even, you know, a handful of you are, you know, returning to the retreat in May as well. So it's like, that was the vision, right? Is that there's a community, like we're building community out of these authentic connections and conversations and experiences with each other. And for me, it's just magic when I'm in that space, and it's a place where I thrive. And if I'm thriving and deeply aligned and connected to everything around me, that's it. Like, that's what I wish for everyone. I set sacred space everywhere I go. And it's like, may those that walk into this space just feel connected to themselves, to each other, to their hearts. And, you know, when you lead from that place, it's just, it takes on a life of its own. And I just have to get out of the way.
You really I love that. And you really saw, you know, I'm kind of new to this manifesting thing, and I'm into it. I'm kind of hesitant and I'm into it, but I feel like you so clearly saw how you wanted to feel 1 year down the road, 2 years down the road, how you wanted your clients to feel. And it happened. And now you're like, is this work? Is this play? These are my friends. And building this community. And Tiffany and I, we went to a girl who was on one of the retreats. We went to her mountain house the other day and hung out for the weekend. And is this work? Is this play? It's both, right? It's so much fun.
It is. It's so true.
So tell me about your day job, you know, and how do you find that balance? Because you're also a personal coach in addition to hosting these retreats. So and so often people are like all or nothing, you know, and really find it hard to do both. I know another exceptional coach who, you know, I think she makes $60,000 a year, and that's her like super part-time gig. Just in her coaching, not to mention her full-time job. So for you, how did you find that balance? And, you know, did it ever conflict with work? Was it ever a problem having this on the side?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I look back at myself over the years, and I went full woo, if you will. I went full woo in my 20s and just did yoga. I worked for a yoga organization, traveled the world for 6 years. It was amazing. When I came back, I was serial entrepreneur. I think I started about 4 businesses that failed. But they were all around women's empowerment and how to integrate these, you know, kind of passions of mine. At the same time, I was an athlete all the way through college. I played basketball. So there's this really competitive nature in me that was really hard to find. I mean, unless you're comparing yourself to other people, when you're an entrepreneur and when you're in a space of empowerment, when you're trying not to compete with others and you're trying to embrace like everybody at the same time. And so that aspect of corporate America, if you will, where I wouldn't say our company quite fits into corporate America, but just that idea of being on a team, having deadlines, even having a boss that challenges me and that says like, you got to get better at this, this, and this. You're amazing at this, and like have that reflection. And I love working on projects. I love project management. I love getting into the mix and learning things that I don't know. And of course, now as director of learning and development, like that's what I do anyways. I've always done learning and development, whether it's for me personally or for others in retreat space, if I'm personal coaching or whatever it is. So now the skill sets are starting to weave together, and what I'm learning at Exos is feeding into retreats, what I'm learning in retreats. And I also have a personal spiritual path that I follow and I'm studying. So I'm studying the medicine wheel in a particular tradition of shamanism called the Keto tradition. And from Peru. And even that weaves itself back into the corporate space. And it's like, for me, I've always felt like I was a bridge between kind of the esoteric and pulling that into a place where people can digest and understand it. Like a bridge between languages, between cultures. And so now there's like weaving in the sacred with the mundane, with the mainstream, like how does all of that flow? Because it's not separate. And let alone, like, I just love financial stability as well. So it's nice because then when I do feel creative, it's pure creativity.
Yes.
It's not me trying to be like, oh, I got to do this to make money. Well, I have to get X amount of people into my retreats in order to pay my bills next month, right? Like it's pure, whoever wants to come, I'm doing fine. Like I'm still going to eat tomorrow. Right?
And ironically, that's what attracts people to you.
Hey there, my heart-centered coaching friends. As a sales coach, the most common question I get is, how do I overcome the money objection? And I get it. Helping clients understand the value of your coaching takes practice. So, in response to your request, I created a super amazing mini training just for you. But it's not what you think. It's going to forever change how you look at objections and buying questions. I've even created a cheat sheet just for you to help you set the stage for a yes before you even say hello. Head on over to michellerockwood.com/sales and grab it today.
So we don't realize sales is such an internal game, right?
Yeah,
and when you need the sale, you actually repel people. And so I often have clients who suddenly quit their day job, fire all their existing clients and go all in. And I'm like, that's really admirable. And now you need it.
Right.
And so what comes through is not just that pure bliss. I'm doing this for me, for friendship, for what's possible, for my vision. Now I need it to eat and to pay the bills.
Right.
And that's a little bit of, and that's okay, but it's a little bit different. And so I love having that stability, filling up your programs and stepping into it. Step into it is just absolutely fine.
Yep. And what it does for me too, like as I align myself with those things that fill my heart, like last year I was kind of running up against some challenges in my day job, but the dynamic of all of that working together was like, oh wow, I'm not actually aligned to what I'm supposed to be doing here at Exos. Like I'm doing this job, but I don't feel aligned like I do when I'm in this retreat space. So what do I do to get there? And I pitched my own role. I literally said, this is what I'm supposed to do at Exos. I wrote my own job description. I handed it over and I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I know it. And I think we need it. And it took 8 or 9 months, but it manifested. And it's like, I'm not going to leave without doing what I'm supposed to do here. And that's magic for me to align myself in that way, you know, with like my main full-time job. And also now everything just feels so full because I feel passionate all the time, you know?
That's so badass. So like, did everybody get that? Like her side gig gave her the confidence to say, no, this isn't aligned, to understand what's actually aligned and what feels good and what doesn't. Right. And to go in and say, hey, what's possible, and to dream bigger, and then to find, to make that role work for you, which had you not followed your passion here, who knows?
Right.
It might've been years before anything changed.
Yep.
I heard that something's going on with Patagonia. Is it true?
It's not set in stone yet, but yes, I may be leading a retreat in Patagonia in November in conjunction with another incredible woman who runs a full global retreat company. So I'm not giving all the information yet, but yes, it's a very high probability.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more, because I love the idea of chance, not chance, but like luck. You know, I'm always thinking about this luck thing. Are people, am I just lucky? Because honestly, like just good things happen to me all the time. I can't even tell you all the time. And then I heard somebody say, no, I'm ready, you know?
Mm.
And they said, no, I'm ready. So there's like this luck meets ready. You were ready and you were practiced, you had that vision. So how did this happen that you
Yeah.
happened to meet somebody that wanted you to host a retreat in Patagonia? You know, like
Right.
how, speak to that.
Yeah. I like to think of it as synchronicity. And the more we align with our truth and our values and our authentic nature and everything that fills us, like all those, that's what manifestation is, right? Like all those doors start to open up and these little alignments kind of start to come in towards each other. And so I had two different women come into my life in the past 6 months who knew the same woman. They were kind of ran in the same circle, but just kind of infrequently crossed paths. And one woman came to my retreat last October, and one woman is connected to my my shamanic lineage and studies. And they both said, "You have to meet this woman." And I'll just say her name. Her name's Brienne, and she runs Root Adventures. She's an incredible woman. You have to meet her because y'all are going to get along, number one, and you all have the same vision. So I go to her website, which is amazing, by the way, and almost identical mission to Mother's Moving Mountains. And I'm like, I like this woman. And I had a vision earlier in my 20s of doing exactly what she has already done, of like having this whole retreat organization, running retreats all over the world. Well, now she's expanding and getting more retreat leaders in to run these retreats all over the world. And then we chatted, and she contacted me and said, "Hey, maybe there's an opportunity for us to work together. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to lead these retreats as well." And I will say that Patagonia has like been number one on my list forever. I went to South America for a year and a half in my 20s, and I had to make a U-turn because my sister got pregnant, but I was literally on the way to Patagonia. I'm like, I'm gonna come back here one day. And I shared that with her and told her that I spoke Spanish, and she said, "Well, that feels like a perfect alignment." And I said, "Look, I am down to run this retreat." And now, even like I couldn't have done it a year ago because I have a 3-year-old and I wouldn't spend that much time away from him. And so now it's like all these things are like, okay, here's the opportunity. So now you can spend 8 or 9 days away and do these things that you love. And I love to travel. Like it's just all of these pieces of me are kind of coming back into play, especially after these first few years of motherhood, which have, obviously been very devotional to my child.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. A lot of times clients ask me, how do I find clients? They say, how do I find clients, Michelle? And I say, I think to myself, how do clients find you is a better question.
Yeah.
And I love you were sharing with me about how just simply optimizing your LinkedIn, being present, being you has led to some really big private coaching clients that are a little bit out of your scope that you wouldn't have reached out to. Can you speak to that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, when I think about all the marketing, like as an entrepreneur, because I was, as I mentioned, a serial entrepreneur for a while, and I know how challenging it is. And back then, way back then, which is probably about 10 years ago when I started a lot of missions, there wasn't a lot of social media or ads and all that stuff out. And for me, that stuff is really a bit daunting and intimidating, and let alone I had a full-time job, so I couldn't spend a lot of brain energy on the learning curve. So I would just do the simple things. And also in the year that I was kind of rethinking and reimagining my work with Exos, I was like, well, I could be a public speaker. I could be a public speaker on women's health. And I was doing a lot of research around women's cycles and hormones, and passionate about that topic. And then I had some other kind of insights from a while ago come in to feed into that, that speaking. But so I started kind of playing with public speaking and doing the retreats, and then saying, hey, like I've always been a coach, but I haven't really promoted myself as a coach in a while. So I reached out to someone who was an expert in LinkedIn pages, and she just sat down with me and she did it for free. And she was just like, hey, let's just look at your page, see what you want to do, where you want to go, and how you can do some very simple things on your LinkedIn to, kind of highlight keywords and what you can do with your bio and all that stuff. So I did those, and it was like, change my title, right? Which used to say just my job title at Exos. And now I think it says accountability coach, public speaker, culture and people, learning and development. So I've got all these kind of trigger words or keywords. And it turns out that about 4 months ago, a really high level CEO said, hey, I have an executive coach who happens to be Tiffany Grimm, who wrote, what's the millionaire book? I forget the title, but his coach is a very, very esteemed executive coach. And he said, yeah, he said I needed to have an accountability coach because I just need to get some things done. And I was like, yeah, I can hold people accountable. I'm really, really good at it. I'm really good at it. And part of me was like, is this my territory? Like, am I skilled enough? Am I valuable enough to give this guy some sense of, direction? And, I just sat with it. And after a couple of our first couple of sessions, it was like, wow, like I have knowledge to help this guy not burn out and hold him accountable and help him weave in some rhythm into his day versus this crash and burn mentality. And these were all the topics that I was talking about when I was public speaking, about this crash and burn and how we have different cycles and the weaving of the masculine and feminine. Although I'm not using any of those terms with him, I am helping him like find a different way of working and of being and of thinking. And so now I coach CEOs.
This is so badass. Okay. I love it so much. Hey, I want to talk before we finish up about some nitty gritty details in hosting retreats. And one, you said, am I qualified to coach the CEO? So how are you qualified? And do you even, I'm using like air quotes, like, do you need to be qualified to host a retreat? What kind of skills do you need to be able to host a retreat?
Yeah, that's a great question. I got pulled into a conversation around helping retreat leaders lead retreats. And I do think there are skill sets that are absolutely necessary when you hold space for a lot of other people, especially if they're having transformative experiences. It's a lot of energy moving through, and you're the one that it's moving through. Well, if you don't set up the space correctly, then it's all going to move through you.
Yep.
Right. So for me, this is where my spiritual practices come in, and setting up sacred space, calling in everybody's, guides and support systems, calling in my own, shielding myself from anybody's stuff, only letting that which is for my highest good in, and keeping everything else out. And, really doing protective kind of measures to be able to hold space. Like, it's a lot because there's a lot of stuff coming up, and emotional energy can be really fatiguing. So I think I mentioned to you I haven't felt a massive amount of fatigue after retreats because I have had those practices in place, but particularly this last one in October, like I had more energy than I had ever because I really set space and then kind of got out of the way. So that's one skill. I'd say the other skill is just being really comfortable with people sharing their vulnerability and speaking, offering feedback, receiving what people have to say. If you're not comfortable with people really sharing, if that's where you're going with your retreat, then it's going to be a little bit challenging. And then logistics. If you don't have someone that's helping you with logistics, it's a lot of logistics. I'm blessed because I feel quite skilled at managing all of the different pieces, and I don't have a lot of things automated. But I'm, answering emails. I've got spreadsheets in line. I've got P&L sheets. I have everybody and their contact info. Whatever it is, like it's all in my spreadsheet. So the practical pieces are really important to manage unless you can hire someone else to do it.
Beautiful. Now I know yesterday someone was asking me about payments and how you structure the payment plans for a retreat and they weren't listing the price. And I was like, no, you got to list the price. People want to know what it is, which is a little bit different. Sometimes when you're getting on a high price coaching call, you might not say the price right away and bring people on, and this person, I was thinking, I actually don't know what your retreats cost. And I think that actually means you're doing a great job, because I always teach that you're selling the payment plan, not the cost of the program itself. For example, I have no idea how much my Toyota costs, right? Maybe $35,000. I have no idea, but I know that it costs me $350 a month, and that's what I care about.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do it? I think you do it. Do you do a deposit and then a payment plan closer?
Yep. I'll do probably a third of the payment as a deposit, and then maybe a month and a half out or 2 months will be the remainder. Remainder will be due. And
perfect. So you're focusing on that deposit, correct? Yep. So when you're like reaching out to people, you're like, hey, get your deposit of $300 or whatever it is.
Yep.
And that's it. That's the only thing you're focusing on.
Yep.
Awesome. And then we also talked about, we were talking about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So, we're already intrinsically motivated to go to this retreat. We want to, escape our children, our spouse, our day to day, all the things. And then that extrinsic motivation is some things like, there's only a few single beds. Do you know, so do you kind of tease some of that deadline, early payments, anything like that to get people to take action?
Yeah, that's funny. I was thinking about that, like even in this last retreat, do I, have an early bird kind of price or anything like that? And I've never done that. I just know that the people who are meant to come will come. And I just I do just list it kind of openly that there are a certain number of single beds and queen beds, and those will fill up first. It's first come, first serve. But I don't necessarily use it in my marketing. For me, the marketing, I don't use any urgency kind of language. I just say, hey, if you feel called, then this is for you. Like, join us. Perfect. Because for me, it's like, I don't need to push anyone to call. I don't want them to feel pushed. Because it has to totally come from within, that they want to be there, and that's what creates the magic. So, and that might be a little bit different than some other marketing strategies, but that's just what I use, because I don't have an extraordinary sense of urgency.
And it also really depends on the person, because what strategy is aligned with you is going to attract the right people. And so, for me, just to tell you, like on my reason for signing up for that retreat, it's in May, right? And I signed up, I don't know, a month ago, was one, because I now know after going to a few retreats that I don't like to share a bed. And I can't, the energy of another human being in my bed, like, just freaks me out.
Well, we don't ever have sharing beds unless you choose to.
Okay, right. But even like a room, I think I'm like, I just like, if I'm going on, if I'm spending the money I want. Anyway, so the bed situation was my urgency for signing up. And you didn't say anything, but I knew it. And then a friend prompting me and going, hey, hurry up before this fills up, so like knowing that I was wanted there, kind of, really, I was like, oh, I gotta get a spot before it fills up. And then I reached out to my own friends.
Yeah. That's what's actually been really powerful in this third year, is now you have people from other retreats, and now they're encouraging more people. And now I have even a waiting list for this retreat. So
awesome. Yeah. So tell us, when is your next retreat? How do we get on that wait list? And how do people connect with you?
Yeah, thanks. So the next retreat is already full, and this one actually is 22 women. So I'll have an assistant there, and it's going to be super fun. But that's May 19th to the 22nd. It's the first 4-day, 3-night retreat. But you still can get on the waiting list, because there's always going to be cancellations. The next retreat will likely be in October, a weekend retreat, Mama's retreat. And then that Patagonia one hopefully will be in November. So my website's mothersmovingmountains.com or tiffgrimm.com, and you can reach me there.
Awesome. I will put it in the show notes. And amazing. Is there anything else you want to share as we close up?
Yes, I just appreciate always being in conversation with you. I leave feeling inspired and excited. And I think you're just doing amazing work for everybody out there who really wants to tap into their authentic nature. So I appreciate you and your energy. I love the energy that you bring to the retreats. I love your candid honesty, and I just appreciate you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Take care.
Hey, coaches, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you like the show, I have 2 asks for you. 1, share the podcast with a coaching pal that could use support around sales. And secondly, leave a review in whatever app you're listening on. And if you'd like to learn more about selling your coaching unscripted, head to unscriptedsales.com or find me at Instagram at Michelle M. Rockwood. See you soon. Happy sales.